Welcome to the Encore Audio Archives YouTube channel. I'm Taper Dave, and this is my channel. I've uploaded hundreds of talks here that I've recorded at meetings in West LA, and I've also recorded conventions starting in 2013. I've got a bunch of those up. And Walt and Mary Murray, the original owners of Encore Audio Archives, started the company in the 80s, and Walt recorded Joe and Charlie's and a bunch of stuff down in Vista, California. My sobriety date is June 20th of 1994. I hope you find something you like, so please like and subscribe to my channel and comment down below. If you want to hear something that I don't have or that you don't see, I'll see that I get it. Anyways, take care and have a great day if you want to.
Thank you. Thank you. Hi, everybody. My name's Polly Pistol, and I'm an alcoholic. By God's grace, in a program called Alcoholics Anonymous, I haven't had a drink since April the 11th of 1977, and for that I am eternally grateful. And thank you. My family thanks you. I have a home group, and that's the Third Legacy Group in Bellingham, Washington. We meet every Monday night at 7 o'clock. And I have a sponsor, and her name is Dottie H. And I was told when I came into the rooms of Alcoholics Anonymous, I needed three things to be a member in good standing, and that was a sobriety date, a home group, and a sponsor. And I'm very glad to report to you that I have those three things, and that my sponsor has a sponsor. I am so excited to be here. I can't thank Ron and the committee enough having Dave and I here. This is our favorite spot on the planet. And we used to come here every year and hang out in the park and do hikes and stuff. And Dave still comes a lot. And I was listening to Bob he was talking about that he and Goldine didn't really have anything in common, but you know, the opposites attract. And Dave and I have one thing in common, and that's Alcoholics Anonymous. And we love AA. But Dave, I love to come to the park. I like to go on the day hikes. I'll even do the tough ones, you know, Yosemite Falls, Nevada Falls. I enjoy all the hikes. But Dave likes to backpack. I don't do those things in the woods. And I don't climb rocks. And I don't sleep outside. And I don't enjoy bears looking down in my tent. And I need a shower. I need at least a little bit of the conveniences of home. And I'll just walk around in the beauty. I'm not into suffering in any way. So, but we love being here, and it's such a pleasure to be able to come and to both of us to be able to share and to be here. So thank you, Ron. Thanks to the rest of the committee. It's just been fabulous. I feel honored this weekend to be with the speakers that I've been with. I feel like that, I get to walk with giants, and sometimes I look around and I look at this beauty and I look at you and I thought, my gosh, I just had to drink too much whiskey to get this life. You know, it's just, I can't believe what God has done for me and the life that we get to live. It's just so fantastic. And I love my life. I love being sober. I love the life that Alcoholics Anonymous has given me. And because of that, I'm busier in the rooms of Alcoholics Anonymous than I've ever been. I sponsor more women than I've ever sponsored, and I'm into more service than I've ever been into. And the reason is because at 26 years of sobriety, I have so much to lose. And I watch people come into these rooms with the amount of sobriety that I have, and they stop doing the deal. And when they stop, they lose their sobriety. And I just love Clancy. I think he's one of our finest teachers. And he was talking about last night. It's what we have to do is to be willing to come here and do these actions that we know won't work, we know won't help anything, but just continue to do these actions. And when I see people stop doing the actions, they stop getting the results. And I know today that it's about action. It's all about action. And I think that's what we've heard all weekend is action. It's all about action. I can identify with all the speakers. I can also identify with the Al-Anon speakers, and I'm one of these alcoholics that probably might kind of piss off other alcoholics, because I'm one of these people that says sober up an alcoholic and standing before you is a flaming Al-Anon. And and so I love both programs, and I love the people in both programs. And it's just been a pleasure to be able to share the program with Cindy and with Clancy and with Ajit and with Bob. And Bob and Goldine, Dave and I have known them a long, long time. And the first time I met Bob was at the Bakersville Convention. God, I don't know how many years ago that was, Bob, maybe 20. Or at least a lot, because we spoke at the Alateen part of the Bakersfield when it was the Southern California Convention. We were the Alateen speakers. So, and that's been a long time ago, and we all just keep doing the deal, and we just keep, if you like what you're getting, keep doing what you're doing. And that's the deal. I know today that I have to keep doing what I'm doing. So it's a privilege that I get to be here. It's a privilege anytime I get to share in the meeting of Alcoholics Anonymous. The big book of Alcoholics Anonymous says that I should share in a general way. Is this, what does that clock? What time does that say? It doesn't. This is not a good time. This isn't the...
good sign that you can't see it.
I can't see it. I'm going to tell y'all, okay, let me finish my thought there. The book says that we're to share in a general way what it used to be like, what happened, and what I'm trying to be like today, and I'm going to do that to the best of my ability. I think it says it's 5 minutes to 11. So I'm going to, stop on time, and, because I'm a firm believer that, the mind can only absorb as much as the butt can endure. So it's, we're not going to stay here. But I have to tell you something you guys heard my husband speak on Friday. I am absolutely the luckiest woman in the world, because you see, as far as I'm concerned, I have the very best guy. The very best guy. And I found him right here in the rooms of Alcoholics Anonymous. And when I turned 60 years old, Dave gave me a Rolex watch. Now I have a Rolex watch. They're very expensive. And we don't have money, so he had to save a long time to get it, but I can't see it. So this is a little bit bigger, and of course, I'm not going to get up here. I used to wear glasses. I had laser surgery, so now I can see far. I can't see a damn thing close. But I don't have to wear glasses now all the time. So it's all about what I look like, right? I mean, isn't that what we've heard all weekend? It's all about what I look like. Anyway, I'm going to share what it was like, what happened, and what I'm like today. And I'd like to start off by saying that I am living, breathing proof that you can come to the rooms of Alcoholics Anonymous and not come from alcoholic parents. I do not come from the disease of alcoholism. Now, I've heard in the rooms of Alcoholics Anonymous, shake an alcoholic's family tree and an alcoholic will fall out. Now, if that's true, then my grandfather would be the alcoholic. Now, I'm here to tell you, my mother does not recall him drinking like me. I don't recall him ever drinking like me. The only reason I say him is he was the only one in our family who drank. And my grandfather would drink from time to time. But I never saw him drunk. I never saw him passed out. I never saw any of those things that happened to me. So all I want you to know is that you can come to the rooms of Alcoholics Anonymous and not come from the disease of alcoholism. I truly, truly believe that there is a genetic component because I seem to produce alcoholics. But all I know is that I didn't come from the disease of alcoholism. I also am a loved and adored child. I'm an only child, and my parents adored me. So I had love. I had all the things any little girl would want to have. My parents did not have a lot of money, but my parents tried to give me everything that a little girl could want. Dancing lessons, gymnastic lessons, all the things that a little girl would want, my parents tried to give me. So I had that love. And I'm not to say that these parents were perfect, because they weren't. Because thanks to inventories, I sponsor a woman named Michael. And I love to hear Michael talk, because when Michael talks, she says, before I tell you about my story, and I mean Michael has a story, all the way to the toilets of Long Beach, Michael has a story. She says, in defense of my mother, let me tell you her story. Well, what I've learned from inventory is about my parents' story. And both of my parents were abused children. And what they did is they found each other and they tried to make a life. And what I know today is that my parents could not give me that which they didn't have. And what they didn't have is they didn't have a lot of self-confidence, and they didn't believe in themselves, and they didn't believe they were okay people. But they loved me, and they could not give that to me as much as they tried. And today I understand that self-worth comes from within. And I know today that self-worth is about a relationship with God and doing worthy things. If I want self-esteem, I need to go do an esteemable act. And today I understand that. But what I was wanting someone to give me is I wanted you to make me feel okay. That was my biggest dependency way before alcohol. My biggest dependency was you were responsible to make me feel okay. Now, those of us who, I know there's some other people from Texas because I talked to them earlier, but in Texas, when you pout and all, we call it puffing up. You know how you just kind of puff up? And somebody will say, what's wrong? Nothing. And the truth is that it's your responsibility to make me happy. And if you don't, I feel rejected. And I love, Clancy didn't say this last night, but he normally says it. And he says that we're people who have to be treated special just to feel average. And if you don't treat us special, then we feel rejected. And that was me. I was always wanting you to make me okay. I wanted my parents to give me that feeling of being okay. But I never, ever felt that way. Now here I felt like my problem and the reason I didn't feel okay was because I was an only child. And you know what they say about only kids. Oh, you're so spoiled. You have everything you want. And then, of course, I had this name, Polly. It's not a nickname. That's my name. And it was, Polly wants a cracker and Polly Wally Doodle all the day. And I'm sensitive. I'm sure there's no other sensitive alcoholics in here. And I don't like to be teased. And if you're a person who doesn't like to be teased, I will assure you every bully and everybody that likes to tease will tease you because they love to make you cry. And that's what I would do. I was just so sensitive. I needed a drink a long time before I took a drink. I was just so sensitive. And I ended up getting sober in treatment. And if you get sober in treatment, you go to group. You go and you sit in group and everybody talks and there's a therapist and everybody shares their feelings and all of that. And all these people would share their horrific stories and these things that happen to little boys and girls that should never happen to little boys and girls. And I would listen and I'd say, well, gosh, I can understand why you're an alcoholic, but why am I an alcoholic? What is it? None of those things happen to me, yet I feel that way, and I'm an alcoholic. Thanks to a program called Alcoholics Anonymous, in the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous, I know what's wrong with me. The big book of Alcoholics Anonymous tells me that I am suffering from a spiritual malady. The big book of Alcoholics Anonymous tells me that if I am suffering from a spiritual malady, I'm separated from the sunshine of the Spirit. The big book of Alcoholics Anonymous also tells me that if I am suffering from a spiritual malady, nothing is enough. You cannot love me enough. You cannot give me enough. You cannot do enough. There simply is not enough for a person like me. Today I know that I have a disease that's spiritual in nature. I have a disease that takes the human body totally. I have a disease of the soul. I have a disease of the mind, and I have a disease of the body. I have a disease that takes the entire person. And that disease is only relieved by a spiritual answer. I have a disease that's spiritual in nature. And the 12 steps of Alcoholics Anonymous are designed to produce a spiritual awakening. I have no way to get well. And Dr. Jung told Roland Hazard that. I have no way to get well except to have a spiritual awakening. A rearrangement of my psychic is the only way I can get better. And the way I have to get better is pick up the 12 traditions, the 12 steps, the 12 concepts of Alcoholics Anonymous. I must participate in those 3 areas of my life. I must be involved in the unity, I must be involved in the recovery, and I must be involved in the service. And if I'm not, I cannot recover from this disease that the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous talks hopeless of mind and body. I am so grateful for the program of Alcoholics Anonymous. I knew about God. I came to the rooms of Alcoholics Anonymous knowing about God. But I'll guarantee you it's not the same God I know today. You see, I was raised Southern Baptist. And I was raised down in Texas right where they took the Bible Belt and gave it an extra pull. And man, I knew about sin. I knew about sin. I can remember getting in the car one morning with my mom and dad, and I was about 9 years old. And I looked at my mom and I said, I'm 9. How did I get so bad so quick? You know, because all I ever heard was things like, you're born a sinner. You're gonna burn in hell. And here I was in this fundamentalist church, and I mean, these preachers could get rolling. And they'd stand up behind those podiums, and their faces would get red, and their veins would stick out, and they'd scream into the congregation, if you've thought it, you've done it. And I don't know about any of you, but I was an alcoholic in the making, and I thought a lot. And I was doomed. There was no way this God I was gonna burn in hell, because I wanted everything you had if I didn't have it. And I was jealous of you, and I was envious of you, and I told lies. I couldn't understand. I just was born lying. And today I didn't know that that's the disease of alcoholism. I lied when the truth sounded better. And I was constantly telling people I had brothers and sisters that had died. I had all kinds of brothers and sisters. I'm not an only child. And I was it's that thou shalt not lie and all those thou shalts that I couldn't do, and I was going to burn in hell. And also it seemed like they told me that God lived out there somewhere in the sky, and I needed those people to get to God. And I come to the rooms of Alcoholics Anonymous, and you give me the big book. And in the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous, it tells me where God is. It says that God is deep within. And it tells me how to find God. And it says to search fearlessly. And today, God, as I understand Him, expresses Himself to me through the fellowship of Alcoholics Anonymous. You tell me about God. I can hear you talk about your God, and I can feel your God. My God's never sent me a fax, but He always sends me one of you. And I am so grateful today that if I'm in a room of Alcoholics Anonymous, I am in the rooms of God, because I believe that God says where 2 or more are gathered, I am there too. And I believe that every time I walk into a meeting of Alcoholics Anonymous, I experience the presence of God. I am one of these people. I'm sure none of you are like this. But I'm one of these people that I used to live in Orange County, California. And I got up at 4:30 every morning, and I drove from Orange County to El Segundo, which is by LAX airport. And every morning that was a spiritual awakening, because I was on an LA freeway for about an hour 15 to an hour and a half every morning and every afternoon. And somebody would ask me to speak in Rancho Cucamonga on a Tuesday night. And I'm sure you all would say, thank you very much, I can't wait to come, and mean it. And what would happen was Tuesday night, it was like, I don't want to go, I'm too tired, I don't want to do that. And, I was told when I came to the rooms of Alcoholics Anonymous, there's only one thing I had to do before I did anything else, and that was just get in the car. Just get in the car, and everything else will take care of itself. And by the time I got to that meeting, I wanted to be there. I wanted to be with those people. I wanted to do what I was doing. Because the minute I hit that meeting, that energy, that God energy was there. It was there. And I could feel it, and something happened to me that happens to me every time I go to a meeting of Alcoholics Anonymous. When I was 18 years old, I married an Air Force officer. And I just knew I'd found my knight in shining armor, and we were going to sail off into the sunset and live happily ever after. And what I had married was a sack pilot. And this man was going to be gone, and he was going to be gone for years at a time, and I was going to have to learn to be responsible for myself. And I didn't know how to do that. I did not know how to take care of myself. Also, I was going to have to learn a lot of things that I didn't know anything about. I was 18 years old, and I had never been anywhere really. I had been to New York a couple of times studying as a dancer, but I really hadn't done anything, and that was a very protective environment. So here I was, 18 years old, and I was married. And I'd been married for a couple of weeks, and I got an invitation in the mail. And it was from the base commander's wife. And she told me that it was inviting me to attend this coffee that she was putting on. And one of the things that used to intimidate me so terribly is I didn't have a college education. I still don't have a college education. Now, what I've learned in the rooms of Alcoholics Anonymous is that you can be and do anything you want to be and do. I've seen it happen time after time in the rooms of Alcoholics Anonymous. And thanks to inventory, I've learned a lot about myself. I've always wanted those letters after my name. The problem is I have never wanted to go to school. And that's kind of my story. I want the title without the work. And so what I would do, because Bob was talking about it this morning, that self-pity, that thing, it's about God. It's His fault. And I would say, well, what's wrong with me is I don't have an education. Yet it was my choice. I always was a victim. I never did choices. I don't know what I thought I did when I said I do when I got married. But I always made it your responsibility. I took responsibility for nothing. So I attended this coffee, and I was overwhelmed with feelings of inadequacy. And this was the feeling I always had, was feelings of inadequacy. You look better than me. You're smarter than me. You have more money than me. You always were better than me. I was always less than. It seemed like whatever I did, I was less than. I constantly put myself in a victim role. And I didn't understand why. I didn't know anything about the disease of alcoholism. And today I know that the disease of alcoholism, I have never wanted responsibility for my own life. The truth is I still don't, but Dave doesn't want it either. So, and you've taught me in the rooms of Alcoholics Anonymous that I have to be responsible and accountable for my own actions, past and present. And today I do that because that's how I stay sober. But truth known, I really don't like to do that. I would be perfectly happy. I am the best person in the world for a good Al-Anon. I mean, give me somebody. I love a Bob and a Ajit. You just take care of me, tell me what I'm supposed to eat, tell me where I'm supposed to go. I love it. And so here I was, these feelings of inadequacy. And I knew these women are going to be so sophisticated. They're going to be educated. How am I going to talk with them? What am I going to do? And I ended up going to this coffee. And before I left, it got worse, not better. Because this base commander's wife, she get up before us, all us little second lieutenant's wives, and she says, these are the things that you're going to do to enhance your husband's career. You're going to go to the right dinner parties. You're going to have the right dinner parties. You're going to go to the right functions. You're going to wear the right length gloves. You are responsible for helping your husband's career. And I was devastated because I knew that there was no way that I could do any of those things that she was saying I needed to do. And a few weeks later, I went to a luncheon and I took a drink of alcohol. Now, when I get up in this part of the country, I love it because I came to Yosemite when I was 18 years old. I came here as an Air Force wife because we came here to the park because we were stationed at Mather Air Force Base and we also were stationed at Castle Air Force Base at Atwater. And I had lived in this part of the country. And so my first drink of alcohol was at Mather Air Force Base. And I took a drink of alcohol. Now, I don't remember any fantastic things happening. I mean, Dave didn't talk about this on Friday, but usually he talks about, that the alcohol went down and by the time it hit the bottom of his stomach, it went out to the ends of his fingers, and all of a sudden his red hair turned brown, his freckles fell off, and he was 6'4". That's what alcohol did for him. I don't recall it doing anything like that for me. I don't recall any of those things happening. All I knew was it just seemed like when I took a drink of alcohol, I could breathe. I could just breathe. And I didn't realize what alcohol was doing for me until I came to the rooms of Alcoholics Anonymous and I read the doctor's opinion. And the reason that felt so good to me is that alcohol, it's what Bob says. I have an allergic reaction to alcohol. I have the allergy of the body. And what alcohol did for me, in the doctor's opinion, it said it gave me that feeling of ease and comfort. And it seemed like if I took alcohol, I could laugh in the right places, I could smile in the right places, I could nod in the right places. Alcohol helped me function. I couldn't function socially until I took a drink of alcohol. I had no idea as the years passed what alcohol was going to do to me. Along about 1962, we're stationed in a place called Loring Air Force Base, Maine. And that is at the very tippy top of Maine. And it's really, really cold there. And I had these two little boys. I didn't have a clue how to be a parent. I had no tools in parenting. I didn't have Parenting 101. And I had these two little boys. And it's 50 below zero outside, and these little boys can't go out to play, and I have them around all the time, and they're driving me crazy, and I'm having a nervous breakdown every 20 minutes, and I end up going to an Air Force doctor, and he says, take these. And from 1962 until 1977, when I walked into the rooms of Alcoholics Anonymous, I drank alcohol and I took Librium and Valium and Seconal and Nimutol. And I'm here to tell you, if you drink alcohol and take those kind of drugs, you are not an active alcoholic. I call myself a couch potato alcoholic. I did my dying on my living room sofa. I just laid there and watched soap operas and listened to Joan Baez sing the blues. I think there's a chapter in the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous that does not get near enough attention. And that chapter is the family afterwards. Because one of the things that I believe in so much is family recovery. I believe that anybody who lives with a practicing alcoholic is affected by the disease of alcoholism. I believe that the disease of alcoholism takes our children and traumatizes our lives. I think the disease of alcoholism can rip the very soul from a child. Because I have seen what the disease of alcoholism did to my sons. You see, I'm an alcoholic mom. I am a mother. I was married to a military man who was never there. And my children were raised by an alcoholic mom. I am a mom today that would not be allowed to have her children. Because you see, I am a child abuser. I am a woman who has abused my children in every way. I've abused my children physically, emotionally, and spiritually. And the thing that I did worse, the very worst message that I sent my children, was that of blatant neglect. I neglected my children. I could not get up in the morning and get them ready to school, nor was I awake at night to put them to bed. I could not care for my children, and I sent my children a message that you are of no value. You're of no value. I am so grateful to the program of Alcoholics Anonymous. I'm so grateful for strong sponsorship. I'm so grateful for a sponsor getting in my face and telling me the truth, whether I want to hear it or not. Because he looked at me and he said, Polly, when I got through with my fifth step, he said, you are a child abuser. He didn't mix any words with me. He wasn't there to save my feelings. He was there to save my life. And he says, you're going to go make amends to those boys. And you're going to tell them how sorry you are that you abused them as children. And he says, and you're going to ask them what it is you can do to make it right. And when I got sober, my sons were 16 and 18 years old. And I went to make amends to my sons. And Frank had also told me, he said, my first AA sponsor had been a Monsignor priest in the Navy. And he had left the priesthood to marry a Taiwanian woman, and he was living in Hearst, Texas. And he was my first sponsor. And I believe that God gives us everything we need when we come here. All of us get different things. And I was just certain that part of the reason I was so messed up was the Baptist church. Well, what does God send me? A Catholic priest. You know. And of course, Baptists feel like Catholics are the worst sinners of all. And Frank comes to me and he tells me that I have to make amends to those children. And he says, and you're going to listen to them tell you whatever it is they need to tell you. And he says, and the only thing that you get to say is, I'm sorry that that happened to you. None of this, you shouldn't feel that way. I'm sober now. And I followed that direction. And my sons were angry. They were very angry. And they had a lot to say to me that day. They had a lot to say to me. And I'm so grateful because to this day, I still haven't done anything that hard in sobriety as I did to have to go to my children and face them for the kind of mother I was. But I will be forever grateful for that kind of sponsorship. And Frank told me to pick up the second part of the Serenity Prayer and go have the courage to change the things I can. And I'm so grateful because today I have a relationships with my sons that is beyond my greatest expectation. And if you would have told me, I didn't believe it would work. I didn't believe anything would work. But I did what I was told. I was willing to take actions that I didn't believe in because you told me to take them. And you've never steered me wrong. You've never told me to do anything that hasn't benefited me, even though I could have sworn that it wouldn't work. All weekend we've been hearing about perception. We've heard about perception. Dave talked about perception. Cindy talked about perception. Clancy has a tape. The very best tape I've ever heard is called Alcoholism, a Disease of Perception. Ajit talked about perception. Bob talked about perception. Steve talked about perception. We've all talked about perception. And it's always been my perception of reality is distorted. I simply don't see things the way they really are. I don't hear things the way they really are. I need you to tell me what the reality is. Because in and of myself, I don't see reality. I don't see things the way they really are. And today, I've learned to trust you. I've learned to trust you, that you love me and you're going to tell me the truth, whether I want to hear it or not. You'll tell me the truth. And I'm grateful for that. Because one of the things I love about is that we as alcoholics talk a lot about denial. But the big book talks about delusion, which means we don't have a clue what the truth is. That's what Ajit said. He was clueless. And that's it. I'm clueless. I don't have a clue. And I took actions that I didn't believe in. And I'm so grateful today that I did that. I'd just like to tell you some things that brought me to the rooms of Alcoholics Anonymous. I want you to know that I don't have any racy stories. I had all my affairs sober in the rooms of Alcoholics Anonymous. I just, my whole deal was I just, laid on my sofa and watched soap operas and listened to Joan Baez sing the blues. That's where I did my drinking. I died on my living room sofa. I died there. And how I got to the rooms of Alcoholics Anonymous is that I had a car wreck in Irving, Texas, right out where the Dallas Cowboys play football. And I ended up calling the police, telling them that my car had been stolen. And here come the police with my husband, and I'm taken to the Irving police station. And I get to see that look on the non-alcoholic's face that just doesn't understand why we do the things we do. And this policeman looked at my husband with so much disgust, and he says, "Why don't you just take her home and sober her up?" And on the way home, my husband said, "Polly, there's a treatment center and it's not far from our house and I wish you would go." And that night I entered treatment for the first time. Now this was no fancy jitter joint. This was a county detox. And I went into that detox and I really liked the people. I loved the laughter, and they started taking us to a lot of AA meetings. And I loved the fellowship of Alcoholics Anonymous. I still do. I still think the magic is the fellowship, because I can tell you, I didn't know anything about steps and I didn't know anything about traditions, but I could feel the laughter and I could feel the fellowship. This is a program of attraction. And you know what? I always want to be an attraction. I always want to be an attraction to the program of Alcoholics Anonymous. And I can get on my soapbox about when you go to meetings, carry the solution. Take the mess to your sponsor. We never know who's there. And I want to be an attraction to the program of Alcoholics Anonymous. And I love the program. But there was just something deep down inside of me that said, "Polly, people like you just don't become alcoholic." And Dave was talking about how Dr. Thibault says that there's two characteristics found in every alcoholic: grandiosity and defiant individuality. He also failed to say something he always says, which is, only an alcoholic can lay in the gutter feeling superior to those looking down on him. And here I was. People like me don't become alcoholic. And while I was in this treatment center, I had a jitter house romance, where sick falls in love with sick and you walk off into happy destiny. Well, we walked off into happy destiny for 58 days. And I was 12-stepped. Frank 12-stepped me out of that motel in Euless, Texas, and he brought me back to that treatment center. And I'd reached that place in the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous that talks about pitiful and incomprehensible demoralization. Because now I knew what the problem was. The problem was sobriety. That's why I love to hear Clancy talk, because he talks about what happens when we're sober. Sober. I can't live sober. I can't live inside my own skin sober. And sober, I knew what had happened in that motel. I knew what had happened. And I couldn't live with myself, with what had happened in that hotel. I couldn't live with the kind of mother I'd become, and the kind of wife I'd become, and the kind of daughter I'd become. I've learned in the rooms of Alcoholics Anonymous that men hate what they've done, and women hate what they have become. And I hated what I had become. And I knew that there was no way I could live sober, because sober, I knew who I was. But you see, I didn't know anything about the program of Alcoholics Anonymous. I'd been to some meetings, but I didn't know anything about the disease of alcoholism. I didn't know that the program of Alcoholics Anonymous was going to give me a God. It was going to give me these steps. I didn't understand that. All I knew is that I couldn't live sober. And Clancy talks on that tape, Alcoholism, a Disease of Perception. And he talks about the disease of alcoholism. Last night he talked about the disease of alcoholism. My problem is not alcohol. I haven't had a drink of alcohol in 26 years, or any of those funny little tablets I used to take. I haven't had any of that in 26 years, but I have the disease of alcoholism. Because you see, I've got a thinking problem. The big book of Alcoholics Anonymous tells me that the disease rests in the mind. On that tape, Clancy says that if alcohol were my problem, then detox centers would send out well people. I've got the disease of alcoholism. I have a thinking problem. And if I don't stay around you and I don't do the things if I don't pick up these spiritual principles and work them in my life, then that thinking problem will drive me back to a drinking problem. I need you. And the longer I'm sober, the more I need you. Because you see, the ego repairs itself. I have to be with you. I have to see you. I have to remember what this disease is like. I have to work with newcomers. I watch people go out and I watch them come back in, and nothing's better. This disease kills. And it kills people in our families who don't even take a drink. The disease of alcoholism kills. It is a family illness. And I didn't understand all that. I didn't understand all that. And what I did was I knew I couldn't live sober. So I left that treatment center and I got a bottle of scotch and I got a bottle of Valium and I checked into a motel. I don't believe that there's anybody in our lives that don't have an angel in their lives. I used to say Eskimo. I used to say that everybody has an Eskimo in their life. And I've been doing a lot of women's things over the years. And if you go to a lot of women's conferences, we talk a lot about angels. And I know today that God has angels everywhere. And they're just there, and He allows them to work in our lives. And I had such a woman in my life, and she knew nothing about the disease of alcoholism, but she loved me. And she said this day that something came over her. And I know today that something was God working in my life through her. And she drove around until she found my car parked outside this motel. And I hadn't shut the door to that motel room, and she pushed it open. And on April the 8th of 1977, I was pronounced dead on arrival in a hospital in Bedford, Texas. Needless to say, that didn't take because I'm standing here this morning. But I need to tell you about the miracle of the program of Alcoholics Anonymous. One of the things that I know today is because of a program called Alcoholics Anonymous, I get to walk in grace. I am bathed in grace by a God that loves us so much. And I totally believe what Bob said this morning. I've heard people use the words, we're the chosen ones. I don't believe we're the chosen ones. I believe that what has happened to those of us sitting here in this room this morning is that God gave us a free gift, the gift of grace. And today, we've chosen to keep it. We've chosen to keep that gift. And our daily reflections, I love, there's a reading, and it says that sobriety is God's gift to me. What I do with my sobriety is my gift back to God. that I get to walk in grace. And if you look grace up in Webster's dictionary, it's a gift unearned. I've done nothing to earn this gift. And I hear people all the time talk about, you deserve it, you deserve it, you deserve it. I mean, especially therapists. We're always deserving of all this entitlement. Well, let me tell you something, my friend. I hope you're never sitting next to me if I ever get what I deserve. What I'm grateful for is I have a merciful God. I have been given grace, not judgment. I have been given grace. And I'm so grateful for the life that I've been given in the rooms of Alcoholics Anonymous. In 1977, the state of Texas didn't take any kindlier to people who tried to commit suicide than they do in 2003. And I was put on one of those marvelous little 72-hour holds, where they, lock you down in a psychiatric unit, which was just enough time for my husband to obtain a court order from a Fort Worth judge that said I was a detriment to myself and others and that I was court committed to treatment. I entered that treatment center on April the 11th of 1977. And by God's grace in a program called Alcoholics Anonymous, I haven't had a drink since. The big book of Alcoholics Anonymous and A Vision for You says that if we stay spiritually fit, that great events will come to pass. That's the great fact for us all. And I'd like to take the time I have left this morning to share with you my great events that have come to pass. God has blessed me so much in the rooms of Alcoholics Anonymous. And I have been asked only to take these steps. I have been asked only to help, to be of service. And what I've learned is that everything I give, I get back 10 times. And I learned that in that Baptist Sunday school. They kept telling me, whatever you sow, so shall you reap. Whatever you give, you get back tenfold. And see, what has happened is that I think that the problem with therapy and psychiatrists is they try so hard to help us. But we're so spiritually ill, and they're always saying things like, do it for yourself, do this for yourself. And you see, I'm spiritually ill, and the only way that I'm going to heal is to help you. That's the deal. The only way I get better is the 11th step prayer. I need to love you and not worry will you love me back. I need to forgive you and you don't need to forgive me. I have got to help you and you don't have to help me back. I've got to learn to love you and give it for fun and for free. I hear people come into the rooms of Alcoholics Anonymous and, they'll grab a newcomer and somebody will say, you come on in here and let us love you till you can love yourself. Well, something, I'd like to tell it to you a different way. Because I think this is the way that works for me. You come into these rooms and let us love you till you can love somebody else. Because as soon as you begin to love somebody else, then it begins to come back. And I've learned that it's whatever I put out is what I get back. Whatever I send out to you is what I get back. Today I can wake up. I'm 26 years sober, and we talk about self-worth and self-esteem and all of that. And I can get up and just like Steve talking about being a hypochondriac, I can still, before I get out of bed, I'm going to be fired and I'm going to die cancer before 9 o'clock. And what I need to do is get up and get on the phone and start helping another alcoholic. I need to start doing something. I need to take an esteemable act. And the minute I start doing that, I start to feel better about myself. It's my privilege to get to serve in the rooms of Alcoholics Anonymous. When I came into these rooms, I didn't know anything about AA. And people said, get busy and get into service and start doing things. And that was really all I could do. If you'd have told me to sit down and read the book, I was quick. I couldn't think all that good. And I started making coffee and cleaning up and doing things in the rooms of Alcoholics Anonymous. And the magic started to happen. And I started working the steps, and I started doing the things that you told me to do here. And my life began to change. And I began to take direction, and I began to do actions that I believed wouldn't work. When I came here, I was married. I had been married for 19 years when I got sober. And I came here and I was still looking for love in all the wrong places. And I just knew that if you'd love me enough, I'd be okay. And I had to hit a bottom in sobriety behind relationships and sex. I had to hit a bottom because, you see, I wanted you to make me okay. I didn't know it was about me loving you. It was going to be about me loving you, not about you loving me. And when I was about 3 years sober, my marriage was long gone. And my husband and I were just like coexisting, and he was a wonderful Al-Anon. I love listening to Bob because my husband, he hunted for bottles and measured bottles, and I filled them up with water too. I mean, we all, you get to hear these stories. It's all the same. And our marriage was long gone, and Dave and I had been friends. And Dave and I had been AA friends, and that's it, for 3 years. And he sponsored a lot of the men that I knew very intimately. And he really knew more about me than he needed to know. And one day he came to me and he said, Polly, I'm in love with you, but you need to get something straight. I don't want to have an affair with you. I want to marry you. And you see, things like that aren't supposed to happen to people like me. And I'm really grateful because I didn't have an affair with Dave. He was like my best male friend in AA. And Dave and I often say if we'd have known we were going to get married, we'd have never told each other the things we told each other. But I married my best friend, and I'm grateful that it happened that way. And October the 27th, Dave and I celebrated 23 years of marriage. And that ain't too bad. You want to know the better news? Is that I've never been more in love with Dave than I am right now. I mean, it's just, thank you, Alcoholics Anonymous. Thank you that you taught me how to have a relationship. Because I'm here to tell you, Dave and I did not know how to have a relationship. We both knew how to take a hostage, but we didn't know how to have a relationship. I am Dave's fourth wife. And as Carol T., one of our really good Al-Anon friends, likes to constantly remind Dave, is that he is the only common denominator in all of those marriages. I am also a member of Al-Anon. I qualify for that program as well as AA, and I just suffered, for 22 years. And Dave and I got married, and we wanted to stay married. We didn't want to just come into marriage and then, find another husband. We wanted to be married. We wanted to honor the covenant of marriage. We wanted to pick up the spiritual values from our youth. We wanted to do the things that we had both learned that God had taught, and we wanted to do the things the way God wanted us to do it. And we knew that marriage was a covenant, and we wanted to uphold the covenant of marriage. But we didn't know how to do that. So we started asking people how to do it. And they told, my AA sponsor says, you stay in the program. You each nurture your program. You work the steps. And then one day, it's like two oak trees. You'll look up, you'll have a strong, strong trunk, and you'll look up and you can't tell where one of you begin and the other one ends. And I have a sponsor, and Dave has a sponsor, and Dave isn't my sponsor. And I'm not Dave's sponsor. And we learn to take this program and work it, the tools. I have a Al-Anon sponsor, and before her husband Albert died 5 years ago, Albert sat down and told Dave and I, because we wanted what they had, because here they'd almost been married 50 years, and they had romance in their life, and we wanted that. We didn't want to be two old people who weren't still really in love and felt that romance. We wanted to have that. And they said there's some magic words. And those magic words are, I'm sorry, please forgive me, I love you. And you know what? You don't even have to be wrong. And as Frank Honeycutt, who is one of the finest men I ever knew, who died July the 31st and was Dave's sponsor and was my mentor, Frank Honeycutt used to say to us, what do you want to be? Do you want to be right or do you want to be happy? And we took all those things, and then this couple showed us how to work the traditions in our relationship. And we started doing those things in Alcoholics Anonymous. And Dave and I have grown. And I'm here to tell you that in the 23 years we've been married, it has not been a rose garden. Life has been in session. Things have happened. We have had experiences. First we get married. He has 2 kids. I have 2 kids. Step kids. What an order. I can't go through with it. Bringing that together. The next thing is we have alcohol, drug addicted kids. 3 out of 4 are alcoholics and drug addicts. Then we have another one who just has a lot of emotional and, just a lot of problems. And so here we are, one in the psychiatric hospital and the others running the streets. So we got these kids that keep us running back to the program of Alcoholics Anonymous and Al-Anon because of what these kids are doing. Then in 1993, Dave's working for an aerospace company in Southern California. The bottom fell out of aerospace, and Dave lost his job, and our whole block was for sale. I tell you, real estate was not then what it is now in California. And we couldn't get rid of our house, and we ended up losing our house, and we ended up having to file bankruptcy, and we're 16 and 17 years sober, and I'm so embarrassed, and what am I going to do? And I was told I had to tell the truth, and I had to walk through that, and I kept telling Frank Honeycutt, I said, Frank, what will people think? And he'd just look at me with all the love Frank ever looked at anybody with, and he'd say, you know something, darling? It isn't any of your business what anybody thinks of you, but your very life depends on what you think of them. I need to love you. It doesn't matter if you love me back. I just need to love you. And Dave and I got through that. And I can remember Dave looking at me one day, and it was all going. You think, gosh, it's all that stuff and it's going. And he kind of put his arms around me, and we were sitting there, and he says, Chris Christopherson wrote a song a long time ago, and Janis Joplin sang it. And it says, freedom's having nothing left to lose. And he says, something, sweetheart? We have each other, and we have AA. We'll be fine. And we are. As long as you have God, it's all okay, because God's our employer. And Dave and I have come through that. And the lessons that we've had. Our first grandchild was born deaf. We all wanted these little babies, and here comes our first grandchild. We can't hardly stand it, and here he is, and I love to see her up here signing, because I think one day my grandson Ryan's going to be here. He's got all the markings. And there's a lot of deaf people in Alcoholics Anonymous. And I can remember holding my fist at God and say, how can this be happening to us? Look at all the people who have babies and they don't even want those babies. And our grandson is born deaf. And you see, one more time, my perception of reality was distorted. Because once again, I had no idea what God had in store. Because you see, what happens is I've learned there's a lot of deaf people in the rooms of Alcoholics Anonymous. And because I wanted to be able to talk to my grandson, and he was born deaf. He'd never heard sound. So learning to understand, read lips was not going to be easy for him. He was going to have to learn to sign. And so what happened was we went to school and we learned to sign. And you know what's happened as a result of that? I did that so I could talk to Ryan. But I've had the opportunity to carry the message of Alcoholics Anonymous to 4 deaf women. My perception of reality is distorted. I have no idea what God has in store for me. All I need to do is just suit up and show up. I want to quickly tell you about my sons. My son James, before I got sober, I was supposed to attend a function at his school. And he says, "Don't you dare show up at my school because I'm ashamed of you." And 6.5 years later, he called me on the phone and he said, "Mom, I want what you have." I'd like for you to know that on January the 3rd, it's a very few weeks away, my son will be 20 years sober. That is a great event that's come to pass. He's married to Kelly. She has 14 years sobriety. They're the son of that little deaf boy, and I wish you could see. They've been relieved of the bondage of self, thanks to you. And they have 3 children, and they've brought the family recovery back. They have brought it into their home. It is amazing what you've done with James and Kelly. My oldest son is the one who's had a lot of psychiatric problems. Russ has suffered from grave emotional problems.
Sorry to interrupt your viewing. Taper Dave here. Just wanted to take a second to ask you to like and subscribe to my channel. Let me know if you like what you're listening. I've got some very good talks here, and this one's a great one. Just curious, do you think this is better than Zoom? Tell me what you think.
And I've known for a long time, and one of the things that has happened that I understand my son Russ even better than my alcoholic son, because I know what it's like to be depressed. I know what it's like to feel so desperate. I know what it's like to hate yourself so bad that you want to hurt yourself, because I was one of those people that cut on myself and tried to hurt myself because the physical pain was better than the emotional pain, and I watched my son Russ do that. And my son Russ would try over and over to hurt himself. He tried to take his life 6 times. And I believed that there was no way I could stay sober. And I'd go into rooms of Alcoholics Anonymous, and I'd go in there, and there would be on that day when I thought, oh my God, I just can't hold it together. And I'd go in there and talk about my son, and somebody back in the back of the room would say, well, just turn him over. And I got up one night in this meeting, and I just raised my fist and said, would you kindly like to tell me how to do that? And I found out that AA didn't know how to do that, but Al-Anon does. And I went back to Al-Anon. And I learned how to love my son and how to love him. And maybe just I don't love the disease he has. And one of the things, if you're sitting here this morning and you don't feel like there's a lot of hope and you want to give up, I just want to say don't leave 5 minutes before the miracle, because I never know when God's going to work. But I want you to know that I am 63 years old and I am 26 years sober, and I have prayed and I have cried and I have lifted my son up in the 3rd step prayer, and I have begged God to take care of him. And you know what? My son Russ has a higher power, and it's not me. I've had his Al-Anon group picked out. I've had all the things that I just knew he should do. He married this Catholic girl, and lo and behold, a few years ago, he got initiated into the Catholic Church, and he became a Catholic, and he found a spiritual path. And I'd been telling him over and over about what I thought was wrong with him and what I thought he needed to do. But he's 43 years old. There's no way I can make my son go take care of himself. And David told him about this doctor that he'd heard about at the City of Hope in Los Angeles, and I was pretty sure that my son probably had Tourette's syndrome because of some of the things that was going on with him. And Dave told him about that, and several years ago, and I want you to know about 10 months ago, that Russ came to me and he said, Mom, do you still have the name of that doctor? Don't leave 5 minutes before the miracle, because my son is now the best he's ever been. He's now the best he's ever been. The program of Alcoholics Anonymous. Dave told you about Kim and Mike. We lost one of our sons a year ago, November the 5th. But our daughter that had been out there for 15 years is home. All our kids are home. God has blessed us beyond our greatest expectation. I told you that Dave and I lost everything in 1993. And all these years we were renting a place in California because we couldn't buy a house. And, we knew that if we ever retired, we were going to have to leave California because we just really couldn't afford to live in California. And at some point, I wanted to quit work. And on June the 30th, I retired. And Dave and I have a new adventure, a brand new adventure. And we're building a house that overlooks the ocean in Birch Bay, Washington. I don't know how you get from there to here. I don't know how you make that leap. I don't know how it happens. The only thing I know is that if I'll just suit up and show up and do the program of Alcoholics Anonymous, every dream I ever have comes true. Maybe it's not where I wanted it to come true or exactly the way I saw it come true, but God will let the life unfold. And Dave and I are having so much fun together. We're having so much fun. I never dreamed that I would enjoy this part of my life so much. I mean, we're together 24/7, and it's fabulous. It's absolutely fabulous. And all we did was drink too much whiskey, come to the rooms of Alcoholics Anonymous, pick up the 12 steps, and it was God's great pleasure to give us the kingdom. I'm so grateful for the program of Alcoholics Anonymous. The big book of Alcoholics Anonymous says, left to my own devices, I'll self-destruct. The best I could do is get me pronounced dead on arrival. But thanks to a program called Alcoholics Anonymous, this morning, I'm the woman I've always wanted to be. I am a woman, thank you, who has been faithful to one man for 23 years. I have loved and honored my husband, and I've taken the vow of marriage as a covenant, and you taught me how to do that. I am a woman who knew how to be self-supporting through my own contribution. I get to get Social Security because I worked for it all those years, and now they pay me. Self-supporting through my own contribution. You taught me how to do that. You taught me how to suit up and show up and do the deal. But the place I'd always felt like such a failure was that as a mom. And a few years ago, my sons came to me and they said, Mom, you're the mom we always wanted you to be. And that is a great event that has come to pass. When I got sober in Center Hospital in Dallas, Texas, one of the counselors used to start every day with a prayer, and I'd like to end my talk with it this morning. I sought my God, I could not see. I sought my soul eluded me. I sought my brother, and I found all three. God bless, I love you.
I think we got a great talk going on here. Thanks for watching the channel. Taper Dave here. Just curious, do you think this is better than Zoom? Okay, this is how I prepare my drone for launching. I like to do it inside the cab of my truck so I'm not standing outside in the weather. To install the joysticks for control, up and down, right and left, powered on. I have an Android phone that I use to connect it to the drone with. And it's actually controlled through the iPhone, through an app. Oops, wrong way. It's actually controlled through the iPhone, or through this Android phone, through the app. It's actually controlled through the Android phone, through an app, and you connect it through this short connection right here.
Remote control connected.
Remote control's connected. So I pull out the drone. I have to extend the legs. Long legs extended first, then the short legs. Remove the gimbal protector. Set that aside, then power it on one short burst, then one long burst. I lay it down. So I have to go to calibrate. So the drone's not connected yet. It shows you here as this drone gets disconnected, even though the remote's powered on. So the drone has to establish it's connected. So I go into the app to calibration mode. First I'll calibrate the remote controller. Start calibration. Out, in, oop, out, in, up, down, and then this little wheel is to control the gimbal. So it's calibrated. Go to gimbal calibration, start calibration, and then it calibrates the gimbal. I don't know if that shows up. The gimbal's moving all over the place. Changes, you can see it on the video. And I'm calibrated to take off. It's acquired 7 satellites at the moment. There are 26 satellites up in the sky, which it has to acquire before you can take off. So it's connected. It's got enough satellites. This is white. I can go to press this little arrow button, swipe right to take off, and it would start the motors if I slid this to the right, but I'll wait till I get outside. Don't want to do it inside.